Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Midday Musing. I'm Rita, and today I'm very excited to be here with my co-host, Pam. But before we dive in, let me tell you a little bit about my wonderful co-host. She's not only a leadership consultant and a professor, but also a brilliant author behind Sparkle, Your 7-Step Guide to a Joy-Infused Life. Pam is dedicated to helping leaders and spouses build deeper and more meaningful connections in their personal and professional lives. So, welcome, Pam.
Thank you so much, Rita. And I'd love to introduce my amazing co-host, Rita. Rita is a certified neuroencoding specialist and a brain health coach. She's a true expert in communication and brain health, and she has a knack for helping people understand the subconscious patterns that drive their behaviors and improving their relationships through optimizing outcomes. I'm thrilled to be here with you, Rita.
Thank you, Pam. I'm excited that we're going to be focusing on a topic that I believe is going to help each of us. I know we're in the series of Reignite the Spark for the last few times that we've met together on how to cultivate deeper connections, whether in our roles as spouses or parents or even in leadership. Relationships thrive on connection. It's so often we get stuck in this cycle of superficial conversations, or I would say surface level conversations. And therefore, we're going to explore how we can break that cycle and foster true empathetic listening. So that will be our topic today, how to be a good listener. There's a quote that says, the most basic of all human needs is a need to be understood and understand. The best way to understand people is to listen to them. There's also another quote that says, listening is an art that requires attention over talent, spirit over ego, and others over self, according to Jean Jackson. And of course, most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen to the intent to reply, according to Stephen Covey.
That's right, Rita. I think about this powerful scripture in James chapter 1, verse 19. It tells us to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. But how do we actually practice that in our daily lives? How do we move beyond just hearing words, but truly listening and connecting? I want to take our listeners on this journey that is so common. Imagine that you've just wrapped up your long workday. You've been juggling back and back with back-to-back meetings, emails, flurry of decisions, and on the drive home, your mind is racing about what must be done tomorrow. As you walk through the door, your partner or child starts talking, eager to share about their day. But instead of hearing them, you're nodding, giving the occasional, yeah. But mentally, you're still stuck in work mode. You catch yourself thinking about dinner, the bills, oh, that one email you forgot to send. And suddenly, you hear your child saying, Mom, are you even listening? You pause. You realize that you missed half the conversation. That's when it hits you, the emotional overload, the stress from work, the rush transition from one part of your day to another. It's made it almost impossible to truly listen. You're physically there, but mentally you're everywhere else. This is the problem with listening when we're overwhelmed. Our brains are constantly switching gears, racing to the next task, but we never fully land in the present. We're trying to do it all. But in the process, we miss the most important moments, the one that matters most. Listening is not just about hearing words, it's about connecting. And when we are stretched too thin, that connection breaks.
So true, Pam. Sounds like you're talking about my life here. But there's other problems I've noticed that hinders our listening is when we have a judgment already. You have a preconceived idea or you come with expectations when you're having a conversation with your spouse. we've been observing, so we've been making these judgments. I know this happens to me. It's like I'm adding up all the things he's doing wrong or whatever. And so instead of hearing what he has to say, I've already overanalyzed and I'm not curious to know his part. I just want to say what I want or what I think, and I'm not listening. So judgment can actually be a problem in our listening, as well as being defensive. There are times when if I have an argument or if I'm talking to somebody and I'm feeling attacked or I feel like they're criticizing me, then I'm not listening because I'm convinced either that I'm right and therefore I'm not willing to hear anymore. That can be a problem when it comes to listening. Sometimes there's a communication style, right? We're all from different cultures, and sometimes we intermarry, and each person communicates differently. Some people are loud, some people are soft, some people are animated, some people are stoic. Sometimes misinterpreting body language can be a problem as well because we don't understand the cultural differences and why people are speaking the way they are speaking because we have not understood how to listen well. And then, of course, we all know and we are aware of digital distraction, right? We're trying to argue or trying to have a deep conversation while we're scrolling on the Instagram or Facebook, or we're trying to have an important, deep talk while watching TV. Of course, all of those things are problems when it comes to listening. So today we'll be breaking down different types of listening and then why our brain can only focus on one thing at a time. We'll talk about practical strategies on how to become more empathetic listener.
I hope our listeners understand that listening is not natural. We don't go to school and someone teaches us how, yet it is such an important skill for us to learn. So tell us about the 6 types of listening you researched.
Yes, one of the ones that I've researched and found out is, of course, active listening. When you're giving full attention to the speaker, you're engaging fully in the conversation, you're being present. Then there's something called reflective listening, where it's paraphrasing, or even, for example, you hear somebody say something and then you repeat it back to them, you summarize just to make sure you confirm that you heard what they said so that you don't just assume and think or make up some other meaning in your head. The third one is empathetic listening, which we will be focusing on today, is not just listening to people's words, but looking at the emotions behind the words, the body language, understanding their feelings. And then there's the critical listening. I believe this is important when we have to evaluate something, when we have to analyze what someone's saying, understand the content of it. And if that is important, then critical listening is essential. Of course, there's also the appreciative listening, where you're listening with enjoyment, you're focusing on the positive aspect of your conversation and the message that you're hearing. And so you're very appreciative and you show that. And then there's the informative listening, which is you're listening to learn, to gain your information. So I believe each part of this listening has its place, but truly what we want to learn and emphasis today is the transformative power of empathetic listening, which I believe is important in building deeper connections.
Wow, thank you for highlighting so many ways that we listen. As I was writing this book and researching about joy, I found that one step to a joy-infused life is listening. And the most powerful type of listening, if you want to connect with others, is empathetic listening. So today, I want us to dive into what is that? How do we do that?
Great. That sounds really great. So go ahead and tell us, what are some ways we can train ourselves to become better listeners?
Oh, that's a great question. When you think about empathetic listening, and both of us have done a lot of work on how our brain listens, and Peter Levine is a trauma expert, and I'd like to quote him. He says, "Trauma is not what happens to you, but what you hold inside in the absence of an empathetic witness." Experts have found that it's a myth that time alone can heal us. because our deepest issues are embedded in our very tissues. So we hold distress. And for us to connect with someone, we need someone to be able to empathize. I was going through some traumatic times, and I was sharing that with a lot of different people. But what made that trauma be released was when a friend of mine sat and listened with empathy. And it made such a powerful impact on me that it just completely turned the way that I felt. I really felt connected to that person. So when you're thinking about some actionable strategies with empathetic listening, the first thing that we have to remember is our brain can focus on only one thing at a time. Sometimes we get focused on listening to what that person is saying. And then the logical part of our brain is listening, and we're like checking, is that correct? Or, oh, this little fact is wrong. And we get into this loop of not really connecting. So it's important for us to really listen to the emotion, overlook all those facts, look at the meaning. What are they trying to say? Because not all of us are trained to communicate really well, especially if we have children. They might come in and talk in deep emotions, and we might be caught up with their tone, or we might feel disrespected, and we're just on two different pages. So it's so important for us to be able to have empathy, focus on the feeling, and move beyond that surface level listening.
Those are fantastic strategies, and thank you for that. I'd like to add one more, I believe, that has personally helped me in my conversations with people is being patient with silence. Sometimes the most powerful moments in conversations happen in silence, giving the other person space to think and respond, and then not rushing in to fill the gap. I remember feeling this 2 years ago where I felt very uncomfortable or awkward whenever there was silence, right? And so I just like talk to fill that silence up. We don't have to. Being comfortable, being present with people, even in their silence, shows that you are truly invested in their thoughts and in their feelings. I also would like to highlight the difference between hearing and listening. Hearing is a physiological process, right? Sound waves going through our auditory system, our ears and going to our brain. Hearing is just passive. There's background noises all around us. It does not require focus or attention. We keep hearing the refrigerator or the air conditioner. We hear the traffic, the noises all around us. It doesn't take any effort from us. There is no brain processing. There is no cognitive function going on over there. However, listening is active. It's the opposite. It's being intentional. It's voluntary. It requires concentration, and so many different parts of your brain is interlocking and working with each other while you're listening. So just a lot of times in our friendships or in our conversations or relationships, we could be hearing but not listening. And so that would be a problem as well. So I appreciate all the strategies that you gave us today.
So as we wrap up today's episode, I want us to remember this. To reignite that spark, that connection, the secret tool is empathetic listening. And I want us to remember that it's not a natural process. It's a skill that we have to develop. And it's a skill that combines attention and empathy. You have to allow the listener to perceive the underlying emotions in someone's words and respond in a way that makes the speaker feel truly seen and heard. So I would like to just end with that challenge to recognize and prepare ourselves when we are wanting to connect with someone, that we're fully present, that we're listening, not just with our ears, but we're listening with our empathy, with our whole heart. We're present. We want to understand what that person is going through, and we want to be able to paraphrase it. We want to be able to feel that presence. So let's practice empathetic listening.
Yes, and I love these strategies that we can practice, apply this empathetic listening. One of the ways it's helped me to prepare is sometimes have conversations with myself. It sounds kind of weird, but it actually helps. I have a conversation with me after I'm another person. And then I go back and forth in my mind, or sometimes I even speak loudly so that I can understand how I'm sounding or what is the other person saying. That helps me as well. So we'd love to hear your experiences. Share them with us on social media using the hashtag Reignite the Spark. I would love to hear how this has helped you. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe or leave a review. And let's really commit in being a kind of spouses, leaders, parents, managers, employees, employers that truly listen with empathy and connect more deeply. Until next time, keep listening with your heart and leading with love. Bye for now.